Imagine fighting the largest army on Earth with barely enough rifles for your own soldiers. In 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland with over 450,000 troops, 3,000 tanks, and thousands of artillery guns. Most military experts expected Finland to collapse within days. It didn't. Instead, this tiny Nordic nation held back one of the world's most powerful armies for 105 brutal days. So how did Finland's legendary Mannerheim Line survive against impossible odds? The answer wasn't a giant wall or some secret superweapon. It was a deadly combination of terrain, strategy, and soldiers who knew exactly how to turn their frozen homeland into a battlefield. The Mannerheim Line stretched roughly 140 kilometers across the Karelian Isthmus, the narrow corridor leading straight to Finland's industrial heartland. Named after Field Marshal Carl Gustaf Emil Mannerheim, it wasn't a single defensive wall. It was a network of bunkers, trenches, anti-tank obstacles, and carefully chosen defensive positions. But the real weapon was the landscape itself. Dense forests, frozen lakes, and narrow choke points turned Soviet tanks into easy targets and stripped away their biggest advantage: mobility. The Red Army expected a quick victory. Instead, it encountered something it had never faced before. Finnish troops used Motti tactics, small, highly mobile ski units that slipped through forests, surrounded Soviet columns, and cut them into isolated pockets. The Soviet tanks were stuck to roads. The Finns were everywhere else. At the Battle of Suomussalmi in December 1939, Finnish forces annihilated 2 Soviet divisions, around 25,000 men, despite being heavily outnumbered. By the early stages of the war, Soviet losses had surpassed 125,000 casualties. Finnish losses were roughly 25,000. But numbers eventually began to matter. In February 1940, Marshal Semyon Timoshenko reorganized the Soviet offensive, replaced ineffective commanders, and unleashed a massive artillery barrage. In just 2 weeks, Soviet guns fired more shells than Finland possessed in its entire stockpile. The pressure became unbearable. By March, the Mannerheim Line was finally breached. On March 13, 1940, Finland signed the Moscow Peace Treaty, surrendering 11% of its territory, including Karelia, and nearly 30% of its economic assets.